It was night 1 of the WWE Draft. I already did a full review of the show on YouTube Friday night. I figured it's a special show, it's a draft night show, so we'll do a super stream, we'll talk about Smackdown and Rampage. So if you want the full review of the entire show top to bottom, that's where to find it. Brock Lesnar, I'll give you the short of it here. Brock Lesnar was in the house, creating more drama between Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, and announcing that he is now a free agent who can do what he wants, which is no different really than the last 9 years that he has been with this company. Roman Reigns is sending Paul Heyman to Raw tomorrow night to make sure that the Usos are drafted to Smackdown. And he is sending Jimmy and Jay with him, and Heyman, if he doesn't get the job done, Reigns told the Usos, leave him for dead. Speaking of being left for dead, Kevin Owens. He lost to Happy Corbin, clean in the middle of the ring, in the most anticlimactic way possible. They're calling the end of days now Happy Days, which I do think that's clever. But it really does feel like Kevin Owens is out of there when his contract is up at the end of January. I mean, there's still time between now and then, although not as much as you may think. It's already October. It's not a long time. But I think KO is as good as gone. Seth Rollins broke into Edge's house in North Carolina while Edge was in the ring in Baltimore at the building. Edge's response to this was to phone his neighbors, Daniel and David, Dash and Dawson, legitimately his neighbors. He decided to phone them instead, or tell Beth Phoenix, I talked to Daniel and Dave, instead of calling the police. Edge apparently does not trust law enforcement to do their job. And we got a rematch of one of the main events of this year's WrestleMania, the match that we were supposed to get at SummerSlam between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, which Sasha won after Becky Lynch got involved. Just watch the WrestleMania match. It was much better than this. Makes me very sad that we never got a proper rematch between these two. But the newsworthy parts of the show were the segments with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville announcing the first 4 rounds of draft picks. The rules of the draft this year are as follows. Half the roster was eligible on Friday, with the other half eligible on Raw tomorrow night in Nashville. That includes talents from the NXT brand. Who are all the eligible names? Well, don't ask me, because WWE hasn't bothered to put the pools up. I doubt they even know yet. All of the names that are eligible. We can figure out who's going to be eligible, some of the names, just based on who wasn't drafted on Friday, but that's not everybody. Draft changes do not officially go into effect until the night after Crown Jewel, which would be SmackDown on October 22nd. So that gives them 3 weeks to tie up any loose ends as far as storylines and titles are concerned. And talents that go undrafted, like the last kid picked for the dodgeball team, will become free agents, and they can sign with any brand that they wish. There were around 20 additional picks that they announced on Talking Smack yesterday as well. So let's just run through all of the draft picks so far, and then I'll kind of tackle some of these. Monday Night Raw, so far, has drafted WWE Champion Big E, Bianca Belair, the Raw Tag Team Champions Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, Edge, Women's Tag Team Champions Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross, Keith Bearcat Lee, Rey and Dominic Mysterio, Austin Theory from NXT, Drake Maverick from NXT, Nia Jax, John Morrison, Zelina Vega, Otis and Chad Gable. So the Alpha Academy is moving from Fridays to Mondays. Apollo Crews, Commander Aziz, Doudrop, Akira Tozawa, T-Bar, R-Truth, Reginald, and I guess the 24/7 crap belt goes with him. So those are the Raw moves so far. Over on the SmackDown side, they have Roman Reigns, Charlotte Flair, who is moving from Raw to SmackDown, Drew McIntyre, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, Happy Corbin and his new sidekick Riddick Moss, who is now going by the name Madcap Moss, Hit Row from NXT, that is Isaiah Swerve Scott, who is still the North American champion in NXT, Ashanti the Adonis, Top Dolla, and B-Fab, or I think as Sonya Deville called him, Top Dollar, in the whitest way possible. I'm about as white as they come, and even I say Top Dolla. You got to say it the right way. Top Dolla, not Top Dollar. Naomi, Jeff Hardy, Aaliyah from NXT, Drew Gulak, Mace, so Mace and T-Bar are no more. They were the last remnants of Retribution, and they are no more. Mansoor, Mustafa Ali, and Toni Storm. Those are the SmackDown moves. Charlotte Flair is the Raw Women's Champion. She is headed to SmackDown. It's a move that Fox reportedly asked for. They wanted Charlotte. They requested Charlotte on the show. Charlotte does need new faces to work with. There were barely any of them left on Mondays. We just don't know how they're going to handle the title situation. You know, are they just going to go the cheap and easy route and just swap the red and blue belts the way they did last year with the New Day and the Street Profits? Because I think that would be incredibly fucking lame and lazy. Not that they haven't done that before. I don't like that. Charlotte still has 3 weeks to drop that championship. I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, you know they want to pad her title reigns. So let her drop it. We all know she's going to end up being the SmackDown Women's Champion in a matter of months anyway. And then she'll go from 12 to 13, 13 to 14, and so on until she eventually breaks her father's record. He who shall not be mentioned at the moment. He is persona non grata in that company. But if it were me, she got 3 weeks to drop that championship. I think that they should consider having her drop it to Shayna Baszler. Now, it all depends on how things go at Crown Jewel with Becky and Bianca and Sasha, because they announced this week they're going to have a triple threat for the SmackDown Women's title. So it is also possible that Bianca Belair will leave the SmackDown Women's Champion, and in fact, her and Charlotte will simply swap belts, and Bianca will officially be the Raw Women's Champion, and Charlotte will be the SmackDown Women's Champion. That probably is the leading candidate for what they are going to do, the leading option that they are likely to choose. But I put the idea out there. I like what they have been doing with Shayna Baszler the last few weeks. This is the Shayna Baszler from NXT that we saw a long time ago. There is time to build to a Raw Women's title match and have her beat Charlotte Flair and have Charlotte put Shayna over. It's not just a matter of giving Shayna the belt. It's a matter of her getting a win over Charlotte would be a big deal for Shayna Baszler. You want to really get this woman over as a killer? You want to show us that this push is real and that we should take it seriously and pay attention? Well, that's the best way possible that you can convince me that you're all in on Shayna Baszler. Now, with that move, all 4 of the horsewomen from NXT are now on SmackDown. And that ain't going to last very long. I think 48 hours from now, we're going to be singing a different tune. But for the time being, Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, and Bayley are all on the SmackDown brand, but I don't expect that to last. With Bianca Belair moving to Raw, I expect the Street Profits to follow tomorrow night. I think the Usos clearly are going to stay on Friday. Street Profits move to Mondays. But unless she drops the championship in Saudi Arabia, one move that absolutely needs to happen is Becky Lynch following Bianca to Monday Night Raw. And if Becky goes to Raw, so too does Seth Rollins. But Becky better move to Raw. Because if they moved Bianca Belair and they do not move Becky Lynch, I want to hear from all these people after SummerSlam who said, oh, let it play out, just let things play out. Bianca's going to end up on top with Becky. Just let it play out. That's going to be awfully hard if they're no longer on the same brand. So either Becky drops the belt to Bianca in 3 weeks in the triple threat, or she moves to Raw. Because if she doesn't, if she keeps the title and she moves to Raw, and Bianca doesn't, then what they did at SummerSlam was even worse than we all thought. Drew McIntyre goes to SmackDown. That was the top move that I pitched. And what it does is it sets up a future rematch, at least one, between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. I loved their match at Survivor Series last year. I thought it was an excellent match. It was an excellent little appetizer to the eventual entree, which could very well be a WrestleMania main event. They could be setting up for Roman Reigns to challenge Drew McIntyre, possibly even drop the Universal title to Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. if they can't get a bigger name, because I'm sure they'd love to have The Rock, but the odds are against that happening, I would think. But McIntyre needed to move. He's put over Damian Priest, he lost to Sheamus, he's been doing a lot of losing. And clearly he was not factored into the WWE title picture going forward, because he was in it for so long. You got to move on and get some new faces in there. And now Big E is going to have a chance to carry it for a while. Drew McIntyre going to SmackDown is the move that made the most sense for Drew McIntyre. With Kofi and Woods moving back to SmackDown, that makes it the second straight draft they have split up the New Day after their brief reunion on Raw. Big E does not need Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods with him to succeed as WWE Champion. Big E, I think, will be just fine. He was doing well on SmackDown without them. But it is really too bad that they fumbled what should have been a special match that meant a lot more than it did between the New Day and the Bloodline at Survivor Series. That's the match that should have happened in the location and on the show that it should have happened. I mean, it happened, but it didn't happen the way that it should have. They threw it out there, and it was kind of a waste. But they still want to do the whole Raw versus SmackDown stuff at Survivor Series, so that would not have been possible if they booked a 6-man tag as an elimination match like I had originally pitched. Jeff Hardy going to SmackDown is one of the draft picks I also had recommended on the podcast, so I like that move. And I'm telling you, there is a program just waiting for them with Jeff Hardy and Roman Reigns. I hope they didn't just move Jeff Hardy over to be the job guy and the fall guy for a whole crop of different people on Fridays, instead of doing that on Mondays. And in fact, if they go with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, let's just say, at WrestleMania, and decide not to circle back to Reigns and Lesnar after the Crown Jewel match, because they could always come back and do Roman and Brock again at WrestleMania. Just because they're doing it in a few weeks doesn't mean that that can't be the WrestleMania main event. We don't know how things are going to play out, in 3 weeks. But let's say they don't do that, and they do Reigns and McIntyre. I would do a program with Hardy first. Hardy can be the setup guy for that. It's a babyface for Roman to work with for a couple of months before getting to whoever the top challenger is going to be at WrestleMania. And so now, in 3 weeks, I guess, when he goes to SmackDown, now is the time to let Jeff start racking up some wins week by week. And then eventually he gets to Roman Reigns. You get a couple of pay-per-view matches out of it. You could do one straight match. Maybe it has a funky finish. You do a rematch, just like they did with Reigns and Balor. Maybe the second match is a ladder match, right? That's a Jeff Hardy specialty. And then Reigns moves on to Drew. Lesnar being a free agent means that he could go wherever he wants, so they could do Lesnar against Lashley at WrestleMania as something of like a co-main event if Brock is not going to be challenging for the championship. But one of the other big moves in this draft, and it's been somewhat polarizing, I think, depending on who you read or have heard from, is Hit Row, which has been one of my favorite acts on NXT for a while. For the longest time, Swerve Scott was sort of this boat that was drifting. The waves were carrying him around, and he was just directionless. He didn't really know where he was headed. He was just kind of floating on the water. And then this Hit Row thing sort of came out of nowhere. They put these four together. Him, Top Dolla, who had not been on TV before. Unless you count the Hidden Treasure show, where he offered $2,000 for almost everything. No matter what piece of memorabilia it was, we'll give you $2,000. I can't do more than that. I got a budget. But, he was added to that group, and I think he has done a good job as well. And Ashanti the Adonis was added to the group, and B-Fab. And I love the segments where Swerve would be in his recording studio and the way they would shoot it. Like, it just looked cool. There was a cool factor about these four being together. It just works. And now they're going to be headed to the main roster. And I have the same concerns with them heading to the main roster as I would have with anybody heading to the main roster. Is that you never know what you are going to get. It's like that fucking box of chocolates from Forrest Gump. You can't be sure what you're going to get when somebody gets the call and says, hey, you're coming to Raw. You're coming to SmackDown. Sometimes it works out okay. And I hold up Damian Priest as an example of that. Damian Priest, I give them credit. What they're doing with him is pitch perfect. They're taking their time with him. He's got that United States Championship. He's racking up a lot of credible victories over credible names like Drew McIntyre, like Jeff Hardy, like Sheamus. He's going in there. He's having great matches. He's not, cruising on by. He's going in there and getting the hell beaten out of him. He's having some real hard matches where it feels like when it's over, he earned the win. He went in there and it was like he was in a fight, especially when you're in there with Sheamus. You come out of it a little worse for wear. But what they're doing with him is a great example, and I look at that and I just go, not everybody is going to get over the way that a Damian Priest is getting over. And I think Damian Priest can be a world champion one day. Not everybody who gets called up from NXT is going to be the world heavyweight champion. But I look at what they've done with him and I say, why can't they do that with a lot of the other people that they call up? Why is it so hard? Why do they not believe in a lot of these people? Or claim they do and then they get bored? Why? Is it because Priest is tall and he's going to get more opportunities because he looks the part? Because he checks off all the size requirements? Is that what it is? Someone like B-Fab, who I think personality-wise is great. She's a great fit for this group. And I absolutely enjoy seeing her on TV when they have those segments, whether it's at the recording studio or she's just out there cutting a promo, whatever it may be. In a match, she's pulling someone's leg and trying to get involved. We've now seen B-Fab in 2 matches on TV each of the last 2 weeks. And the verdict on B-Fab, and I'll talk about NXT in a little bit when I do the review for Tuesday's show. She had a match this week against Elektra Lopez, who is also someone new that we haven't seen a lot on TV. I've seen B-Fab in the ring twice, and it's not pretty. She's not ready. In the ring, she needs a lot of work. She's just not that good. I'm guessing she just hasn't had a lot of experience so far doing matches in front of, an audience and everything. So she is not ready for prime time when it comes to being in the ring. If their plan for her is to be part of this group and really not do a lot of wrestling at first, continue to train, continue to learn, focus more on just her as a character and a personality and a presence as part of this group, and let Swerve Scott, for example, do the majority of the wrestling, then that's okay. Because he's more than ready. Swerve, I don't think anybody can debate about the fact that, Shane Strickland is ready to be on Raw or SmackDown. B-Fab is not ready as far as being in the ring. Ashanti the Adonis, from what I've seen of him, he's good. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on whether or not he's ready. I think he'll be okay. Top Dolla sort of falls into that camp of great personality, great talker. The way that they've kind of booked him in matches where he shows off his power. He's power slamming 2-3 guys at a time. I think that'll get over. It's really B-Fab of all the ones in the group who I think needs a lot more seasoning before she's ready to be in the ring. We don't know what their plans are for her. Maybe they call up Hit Row and they want to take B-Fab and make her the big star. That's kind of what happened with Sanity. When they called up Sanity, it was Nikki Cross. You look at all the members of that group and look who's the last one standing. It's Nikki Cross. Sanity never had a shot. You talk about factions that got called up from NXT that were never even given a chance. They got called up to SmackDown. They were fucked from day one. All I can do is hope that does not happen. That fate does not befall Hit Row. Because I want to see them succeed. It is a hot act. It is a money act. And I think they could get over in front of that audience. I don't think they would have an issue doing it. I think they'll get over. Swerve Scott, we know he can carry his end in the ring. What happens with the North American title? Does he drop it to someone like Santos Escobar first? Does he just give it up? We've seen that before. Asuka, remember? Asuka and other people who have been called up have just sort of given up. They've surrendered their championships, and then they're declared vacant. Swerve Scott never really had a chance to show what he can do as the North American champion. How many title matches has he even had? How many title defenses of that belt has he had? Has he had one? He might have had one. I can't think of very many. If you ask me to name one, I can't even name one. I vaguely think there might have been one, but that tells you something right there. So he never even had a chance to have much of a run with that championship. After he took it, Bronson Reed was the North American champion. He didn't have it for very long, and now he's out of a job. That North American title has been somewhat cursed in a way, it feels like, recently. But all I can say about Hit Row is this. Top Dolla went on Twitter. He said, "Stop comparing us to other people who couldn't transition to the main roster. We can promo." And how much of that was in character, how much of that was real? I'm sure a lot of that was real, because I have seen a lot of comments online complaining about the fact that Hit Row got called up, they're not ready, and this and that, and I'm sure it gets to him. I'm sure that comment, as much as it being in character, a lot of that was real. A lot of what he tweeted out there. But when he goes on Twitter and he says something, "Stop comparing us to other people who couldn't transition to the main roster," I take that also as such a slap in the fucking face to people who, and I just mentioned Sanity as one example, who got called up to the main roster. And if you're someone like that, and a lot of those guys don't even have a job in this company anymore, and it's not necessarily because they weren't talented, they got signed for a reason. WWE signed them and was paying them not because they felt charitable. It's because they saw something in them at that time, and so they gave them a contract, and they brought them in, and they had something to bring to the table, whether it was on the microphone or in the ring or in some other capacity. Things didn't work out. They lost their job. Here's Top Dolla going on Twitter and saying, well, those people couldn't cut it, is what he's saying. And to me, that is such a dick thing for him to say. Yeah, there are some people who can't cut it. A lot of those people, though, who were never really given a chance and ended up not succeeding, it was not through anything that they did wrong. It was because they never got a fair shake. And I'm sure we could sit here and think of a whole bunch of names that would fall into that category. Why is Bronson Reed no longer employed by WWE? Why is he sitting home waiting to be picked up by another promotion, waiting to get back out there and get back into the ring? What was wrong with Bronson Reed? They belted him. They put the North American title on him, just like they did to his buddy Swerve. And then he lost it and he got fired. Now, why is that? Because he wasn't good enough? You're going to tell me he wasn't good enough? Say that to him. I'm sure he'll have something to say about that. It just came across as such a smug dick thing for him to say. As if everybody who gets moved from NXT to the main roster who doesn't work out, well, it's all their fault. We'll see if he's singing that same tune in 6 months, depending on how things work out with Hit Row. We'll revisit that comment in 6 months and see if he still feels the same way. All I'm going to say is, I hope they succeed. I just hope the people who are going to be pulling the strings now behind the scenes and running things there on Smackdown, it's a very different crew from NXT. You know, you also talk about scripted promos and lines that they might want them to recite and stuff, and it's going to be very easy to tell if Hit Row is being coached more and more on what to say in terms of their verbiage. Do their promos change a lot? Or does it sound like the same Hit Row that we have seen for months now on NXT? He seems to think, if you listen to Mr. Francis over here, they're not going to be scripted. It's going to be Hit Row as you remember Hit Row. Okay, all right. I'm sure everybody has that attitude before they go to the main roster. We'll see. We'll see. I don't need a backstage source to tell me. I'm going to watch, and I'm going to listen to their promos, and I'll be able to hear with my own 2 ears. And we'll see if things look and sound any different for Hit Row than they did in NXT. For their sake, I hope he's right. He seems to be very confident, this guy. I hope he's right. Now, after the first half of the draft, both shows are pretty evenly matched. The Edge goes to SmackDown. Well, I mean, Edge goes to Raw, but the Edge I would give to SmackDown because they have Roman Reigns. And whichever show has Roman Reigns is going to be the A show because Roman Reigns is the biggest star in that entire company. If Roman Reigns gets hurt, if Roman Reigns gets sick, if anything happens that takes Roman Reigns off of television for any extended period of time, these people are fucked. That's how important he is and his story is to that show. Now, I tried to look on WWE.com for the remaining pool of talent eligible to be drafted tomorrow night, and surprise, surprise, there is none. They have nothing listed because they don't care enough about these things to list them online. Bobby Lashley is obviously eligible tomorrow night, and I hope they did not reunite the Hurt Business for 1 week just to break them up the next. But that would be very much on brand for this company. Kevin Owens would be better off being drafted to AEW at this point. I think he will be. I think he will draft himself. He'll become a free agent, and then he will draft himself over to All Elite Wrestling. But for now, I think Owens to Raw is the move that I would make. He moves every year, so I would be shocked if he wasn't drafted. They treat this guy like the village whore, the way he gets traded back and forth. Why would this year be any different? What's he doing on Smackdown right now that's so important that he has to stay put where he is? He's doing jobs for Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. I think Kevin Owens to Raw is the move to make. But if they think he's leaving, if they're trying to shove a contract in his face for an extension or whatever, and he's not signing it, and they think that there's a good shot they're going to lose him, he's not going to get pushed to any great degree. I still think moving him to Raw, though, is the move to make. Looking at the NXT roster, LA Knight needs to be on Raw or SmackDown yesterday. It is a fucking embarrassment if LA Knight does not get drafted, but Aaliyah does. For the NXT women, I think Dakota Kai, I think Xia Li, and I think Frankie Monet could all move from NXT tomorrow night, either to Raw or SmackDown. Dakota Kai for sure. I would be surprised if she doesn't move. I mean, she hasn't made a single appearance on TV since losing to Raquel Gonzalez. You know, and I joked before about her becoming the new human form of Lily when Alexa Bliss comes back, kind of half-jokingly, but I don't know. I'm not completely joking about that. That does sound like something I could see them doing. Xia Li has been absent from TV as well, which is one of the reasons why this whole Tien Sha storyline has just collapsed on NXT. It is just fucking dead. I don't know that she's going to be going back there. And Frankie Monet just lost to Raquel Gonzalez on TV this week. Where does she go from here? She doesn't need to be on the developmental show. This woman has been doing this for a while. She's traveled all over the world. Frankly, she doesn't fit the mold of what it looks like they're looking for now on NXT. They're going with less experience, younger people who don't have the kind of experience that she does. She would be much better off going to Raw or SmackDown.